This time on shift points. First drive. So we had a couple of brake hoses here that we think are going to work for the front of this. Much like the ones we got from the Napa store, the banjo fitting is a little smaller than what we really need. But these have a little bit more material around the outsides of them, so Dad's going to try here to drill these out and see if we can use them. We did a little filed on the end of them a little bit to get it to where it would go up into the factory mounting location on the frame for the where the hard line goes into the hose. So if we can do that, and then he can drill this banjo fitting out a little bit, these should work just great. And then we can bleed the master. We can tighten up those hard lines there, bleed the master cylinder, and then put it on, and we'd be able to bleed the brakes on this thing. So potentially, yeah, big gains today.
I'll let back when it comes out of that vise and hit that camera.
I know, that's why I was staying back. Guess I can stay back here and zoom in. Alright, so Dad gets that drilled out. That bolt goes in there no problem now. So I think these are gonna work. We'll get the other one drilled out and get going. Alright, we got this thing running finally. It's doing pretty good. We've kind of started it a couple different times off camera. Pretty much just one little hit of gas, turn the key, it lights up every time, so that's great. So now, what we're trying to do is we'd really like to go take this thing for a ride. We really want to get it off the jack stands and drive it. So what we'll do is we have two things we need to do. We got to get the emergency brakes figured out because we need to adjust the rear calipers, and then we need to bench bleed the master cylinder and then bleed all the brakes. So I told you guys that the emergency brake cables, if we go back here and look, these guys that I have on here, these sleeved pieces, these are too short to reach to the stock location for the emergency brake cables. So I have them clipped onto the caliper here. We got to get under here. I made those tabs, if you guys remember. So we're going to get under here, figure out where these need to go so that that'll clip into place. Dad's going to get under here and weld that up. Weld those tabs onto the frame. It's really not much. Like, it is really, like, it's going to be probably maybe 3 inches further back, maybe just a touch higher. And then once we get those in place, those get clipped up, those will be solidly mounted, and then we can start working on the cables. So the good thing is we've got two of these guys here that we can use to hook it up to where the stock location was. And we have one piece of this cable, but I think if we get it in place, we can cut this cable and put ends on it somehow. I mean, they make ends for it. So if we can get those put in place, then all we need to do is cut that and get the length right. It's going to bolt right up into the stock stuff and use the pedal and lever and everything that's already there. So that's what we're going to work on first, getting the emergency brakes done. Then we can bench bleed the master cylinder and then bleed the brakes. So Dad pulled the master cylinder off and got it bled. So you can see we've got the hoses in there. He's got a big screwdriver that he uses and presses in on this. Gets that master cylinder completely bled. Press in on that until you stop getting any bubbles out of the hoses. Everyone kind of knows that, I think. So I'm going to ease this back on over there. Get this ready while he works on getting some of the emergency brake cables hooked up. We have two ends. It's one piece of cable that has the ends already on it on each end of it. So we have to figure out some way to kind of cut and then terminate the cables so that we can just use cable off of the existing mechanism, then go back to the brackets that you guys saw that we had. So we got all that, the hard line itself up in place, the sleeved parts, we got those clipped in place how they're supposed to be.
We made these cable instead of splicing the cable, and we didn't have anything to attach a ball to it, we just made these. These are 3/8 of an inch solid stock. I'll drill this in, put 1/4 threads here, run the cable through here, so it'll hang. There's a bracket underneath that hangs on the end of the emergency brake attachment under the car. These will lay like this with the cables running toward the back, and there's a couple of the fittings on the end of those cables will hang on the at the emergency brake cables. So that should take care of that. We can make these about any length we want, make them the tension just right, and we've got about 2 inches of adjustment forward and rear to loosen or tighten the cables from there. So I think it'll take care of that too.
All right, we got these cut and adjusted where they need to be. Put them up in there, and you can see kind of how that hole, that set screw goes down a little deeper than what this hole on the side is. You said how much?
1/8 of an inch.
1/8 of an inch.
Well,
so
about an 1/8 of an inch deeper.
Okay.
Than the threads are.
Gotcha. So you can see that kind of causes this V shape because it's got it pinched down here, which is perfect. It's locked in. We put some permanent strength Loctite in these. We're going to cut the excess tail of this off here. I'll get them put in place and show you guys what the final look is. All right, we're back on this thing today. Unless something crazy happens, we should be driving this thing today. This morning, Dad's already been working on the alternator. He was trying to figure out how to keep it. You guys saw last time how it was shaking. As the engine was running, it would start shaking. The bracket just wasn't hardly stiff enough to hold it in place. His plan is, what he's doing right now, he got some longer bolts, and it turns out that this hole in the block there is actually threaded. So I should have got a different kit, honestly. That would have kind of solved this issue. But he got a longer bolt, and he's going to make a spacer that's going to go between the block and the alternator itself. Zoom in here so we can see it a little better. So you can see where he's measuring from. There's going to be a spacer that runs from the block between the alternator, and then a bolt that's going to run the full length of that in there so that it'll keep it from shaking and keep everything sturdy. So he's doing that. I got the seat bolted in. And now we're going to bleed these brakes. They opened the bleeders and got fluid into all four corners of this thing this morning already. So all we got to do is just do the final bleed on it. Doesn't seem to be anything leaking out of it or anything like that. So my flare's held up, which is great. One thing I realized I hadn't showed you guys is how we ended up running the emergency brake cables. So you can see this right here is the stock hardware. Dad made those T-bushings that you guys saw with the set screws in them. Those go into that, and then the harness, or then the cables themselves go back here to those, to the shackles that came with the kit, like there and there. And then the hard lines themselves, I'll call them hard lines, the sleeved cables that go out to the calipers themselves, they run off of these brackets that we made with a terrible paint job over to the caliper themselves on both sides. You can see that here and here. So that's how the emergency brakes ended up being. We need those for a couple reasons. The emergency brakes do keep these calipers adjusted. Also, on a first drive like this, when everything's not tested, better to have an emergency brake to make sure something bad doesn't happen. So we wanted to make sure that got done. That all got done yesterday. So now I'm going to bleed these brakes. Alright, it's on the ground. First time since we washed it the other day. It is on the ground. We're about to go try and drive it, make sure the brakes work, see how everything else does too. So here we go. Alright, first time we're driving with the new camera here. Trying to get it situated. Started right up though. Just hit like one little blip of the throttle and then it cranked right up. Thanks, it's good brakes.
Good brakes.
Got really good brakes. Man, those are healthy brakes on this thing. Mom's following us in the Chase Suburban. Her and Jackson, he just got here too. Sounds cool. How's the pedal feel? Good? Good. It feels like they brake really well. Try to get this thing turned around. I kind of forgot it didn't have power steering. School bus. Officially road bound. All good? Okay. Officially the first time this car's been down the road in probably at least 15 years, maybe upwards of 15 to 18 years of this thing went down the road under its own power, and it's better than it's ever been, I would say. The motor is so smooth, the brakes are really good. Seems like the transmission shifts pretty easily, which we didn't do anything to that.
It's only a 3-foot swing on the shift.
Wow, that's a pretty drastic throw on the shifter. I know, but you just went to neutral and it was already drastic. It's like it's not that loud. I'm surprised. I was expecting it to be a lot louder with basically just open headers. Wow. What a travel. Well, we gotta put a shift point sticker in this thing before we take it to the show tonight. It's got to get official.
That's in high gear, by the way.
That's high gear?
That's high gear.
Really? Whoa. Turning 2000?
Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I do. I forgot.
So it's like turning like 2000 in high gear at 45 miles an hour.
That's big tires on it, though.
Yeah, that's true. We did. Yeah, the big tires would have changed that some too. Wow. Now this thing's gonna be an animal on the interstate.
Only on your hip pocket.
About the vent windows here, they're knob driven. Isn't that pretty cool? And that's slick. I'll have to push them out. Slick. The other kind of cool thing about this thing is the door handles. No fuel leaks, fans are working. Alternator is steady now. No movement at all there. No leaks, looks really good. Let's get it back to the house. Well, I'd say so far a pretty darn successful first trip. Took it up to the Sunoco station, got it filled up most of the way with gas, put 15 gallons in it, so that's 15 gallons plus whatever 3 or 4 we put in it when we started it the very first time. And put it to about the 3/4 mark. So it must have like a 23, 24 gallon tank or something like that. Again, it's the first time this thing's been on the road in 15 years or more. Probably more, honestly. So anyway, so far so good. Just easing on to the house. I'm glad Dad thought of it. We were driving down here and he said, get your speedometer out on your phone. And this thing says we're on 47. If you look at the speedometer, this thing is pretty much dead on. So I guess even though we changed those tires, everything's all right. This is officially the first time that I have ever driven my car. I've had it since I was 13 technically, and then when it was 16 it became mine, so that is 7 years. No, gosh, how old am I?
It's 14 years.
14, oh my gosh. At the top, all the way at the top.
I like this full length, good quiet exhaust system.
Yeah, oh yeah. It ain't that loud. It's actually a lot quieter than I expected it to be. Hello, truck.
Bye, truck.
Alright, 14 years since I don't know how to math apparently. 14 years I've had this car, and this is the first time I've ever driven it. It's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I'm excited. We are heading up to Mars Hill. We're having the cruise in that they have up here on Friday nights. They're having that cruise in. I think this might be the last one, so we're gonna go up here and at least you gotta take this thing somewhere on its own. Its second trip out of the shop. Second time on the road in 15 years. It's pretty crazy. We made it. Be excited. That's high-hatness. He's going all the way down there. He's leaving us out. Alright, last night was a very, very successful first trip on the Galaxie. This thing did really great. It runs good. It sounds good. The motor is idling pretty good. There's a couple different little things that we're kind of run into that we noticed last night. First off is the brake lights don't work right now. These things do not have a mechanical brake switch on them. They are a pressure switch. So I had to go to the App Store and get a pressure switch this morning. And you hear Dad in the background right now working on that. He's making an adapter that's going to go into the master cylinder here. Let me raise the hood and I'll show you. Interrupt Jackson's work. We're going to take this fitting back here was leaking. So we're going to take that out, and he's going to make an adapter that's going to thread into that and then allow us to screw the brake pressure switch into it. Then I can take these wires that are already back here that were on the original one, extend them, just cut these, use these same ends, cut this, extend it, and plug it in, and we should have brake lights again. So that would be really good. So he's working on that right now. I am working on getting the brake light, the brake failure light that goes right here. That thing was kind of teetering on and off. We had a couple little leaks on the master cylinder, like I said, that one fitting, and plus the rear brake line. So there must have been just enough of a leak to let that thing shuttle, let the proportion valve shuttle a little, and it was grounding. And if you pressed, it would ground, it would turn on, it would press, it turn off. One good thing about that is we know that it's working. That's always my worry about that, and I could always check it, of course, by just having my switch 12 and then just hooking up a ground to the other side of it, make sure the light's working and everything. But I didn't do that last night because we were trying to get going. But it is working. We know it's working. So what I'm doing is I'm making a little bracket to mount this kind of under the dash a little bit. I didn't want to drill any holes in the dash of this thing. It's not like the 55 truck where we didn't really care. We just drill holes in whatever because it's just an old truck. This thing's actually pretty nice. And I don't like drilling holes in old sheet metal anyway, unless I just absolutely have to. But there's a hole that exists under the dash. I'm making me a little L bracket. I'll show you guys that to mount that light in. So it's not super obvious that it's there, but it's functional and it should work if it's needed. The other thing is that this guy's back. Jackson is here. He's cleaning up on this thing. Everything on it has been done, except for he has another step on the front clip. The last time you guys saw it, him and Logan were working on it. They got the whole body done, but they didn't get this front clip done. So he's going to do this next step on the front clip. Then he's going to go over the whole car again with another wax step, right? Yeah. Going to wax it. So then after that, he's working on that. So we've got all three of us working on 3 different things this morning, trying to kind of just finish this thing up. I'm still just super happy with how it did last night, really. It pulls a little to the left when you get on the brakes. It has a little bit of a left pull. So there's still couple little things, but we really think that just driving this thing is probably going to help it. Again, I said it multiple times last night. It's the first time in over 15 years this car's actually went down the road under its own power. The fact that it did as well as it did is pretty amazing in and of itself. So let me go over here and show you this adapter that Dad's making, and I'll show you the bracket that I'm making. Very basic bracket, by the way. So here's the bracket. Like I said, very simple. Got a clearance for a 1/4-20 bolt that goes under the dash. So this is going to mount on the dash kind of like this, and then the light's going to screw into that bigger hole there. That's very basic. So get that right there. Now, on to something that's actually way more impressive than what I'm doing. So he's making this out of a piece of brass. He had found a piece of brass. He's going to take it and he's going to turn it down, get it to the right, and he's going to thread it for a 9/16 18, right? 9/16 18, and he's going to countersink the inside of it a little so that it'll actually have kind of a inverted flare type deal like the old adapter. Then he's going to drill that and have it to where an 1/8" pipe thread will thread into it. And the reason is for this guy right here. That is an 1/8" pipe thread. That's going to be our brake light switch. So when that gets screwed into that, hopefully with some Teflon tape on it and everything, we'll be able to, hopefully with some Teflon tape on this thing, or on that adapter, we can screw that into the master cylinder. We'll solve 2 things. We'll solve the leaking issue that we had, as well as having a switch in here. Using that tailstock like it was, pushing it up against it, make sure that gets started good and square. And then he finished tapping it by hand, backing it off now. So that right there is gonna be what threads into the master cylinder itself. So he'll drill a hole and then countersink this also, so that it'll hopefully mate up to that inverted flare that's inside of there and help with the leaks. Alright, got in here now. So this is where I ended up mounting this. You can see, like I said, didn't have to drill any holes or anything. And if we flip the switch on here, since we've had that issue that we've been seeing, you can see it is lighting up, so that's connected up how it needs to be. Just need to get that shuttled back where it needs to be. So that's good. That is one little job that really kind of cleaned everything up. If you're sitting here in the seat though, this little key ring thing that Richard had on these might be kind of getting in the way of it, but maybe it'll look like it's flashing if that does that. So Dad has this cut down, got the hole drilled, got that countersunk like we talked about. Now he's got this thing in a collet here, and he's going to cut some flats on this so that we have some flats so we can use a wrench to screw this in like it needs to be. Aren't you happy that you have me? right here is the finished piece. So that sensor screws right into this. There you go. And that'll screw right into the master cylinder. We're gonna put some Teflon tape on this and get it in place. Looks great. Looks so good. One thing I wanted to show you was here, this finished product. So this is the piece that Dad just got done making. That screwed into the master cylinder. That is not leaking. It's perfect. This pressure sensor's in here. It's perfect. I extended these lines. These are the factory ends, and then I extended these with some green wire and plugged that in here. And then whenever you press the brakes, the brake lights actually work, which I'll show you here in a minute whenever Dad's has this plugged back in. Remember, if you ever take that sensor out or whatever, any of those out, make sure you don't hit the brakes, because it'll shuttle one direction or the other. So don't do that. Also, my friend Jackson over there, he has been working his butt off, and he has this thing absolutely cherry red shining. You can actually see my ugly mug in the paint here, if I can get this lined up there. Boom. It's pretty crazy actually how shiny this actually got. If I can get, there we go. Bam. Yeah, that's how shiny it is. You can literally see reflections in it over the whole car. You can see and read the labels on the bottles over there. It's so shiny. So he's done a bang up job on it. He's been working on this while we've been working on other stuff, so he's been on his own today for the most part. There we go. Brake lights do work now.
Well, let's put a little bit more pressure.
You do.
Yeah,
you gotta put some pretty good pressure on it, because that pressure switch, yeah, exactly. Well, I think that's gonna pretty much wrap us up this week. Man, let's recap real quick. I mean, this has been like a 3-month deal nearly. Got my great uncle's 64 Ford Galaxie. He gave to me after he died, and we got it running. We got it up here. We put brand new radiator, brand new carburetor, new air cleaner, new spark plugs, swapped it over to an alternator, run all the new fuel lines, all the new brake lines, put disc brakes all the way around, put these awesome set of Ventique steel wheels, and at some point I got to put the hubcaps on and show you guys that too. We did a lot of stuff to this thing. We've worked on it a bunch. Then Jackson gets a hold of it and he brings the paint absolutely back to life. Thing is shining, looks awesome, looks great. I'm really, really happy with this. And I don't think we're done with it. I think we got a couple little things we'll probably keep working on this. And then, I don't know what the plan is for this thing just yet, to be honest with you. It's probably going to go to some shows and different stuff like that. I think the next Patton Avenue cruise is on October 7th. Probably go to that. And I do know for sure that we are going up to North Wilkesboro. They're running a big like Moonshiners car show up there sometime in October. I think it's like the 21st maybe. I think it's 21st. So I gotta look at that, but that's definitely going to this too. So we've got this car registered, we got Dad's truck registered. We're gonna go do all that. So there's still more to come with this car, but right now this is a really big deal. I'm getting it driving. We're gonna take it up here and get exhaust on it here pretty soon. Since we've just got the little turn downs basically on there right now. Man, what an awesome car. It looks good, runs great, everything's good. If you guys like this project, go back and watch the whole thing. You can go back and watch the videos again if you want to. Click the subscribe button when it pops up in the center, and follow us on social media. This car's been featured a whole lot on social media here pretty lately. So go check all that stuff out. If you go follow us on that, you're usually ahead of schedule. So you'll be able to see things as they're happening a little bit more kind of in line with how quick they're actually happening. Thank you guys for joining. We'll see you next week.